At minus 62 degrees Celsius, food does not spoil. It shatters. Fat turns to stone. Moisture crystallizes in midair, and even the idea of warmth feels distant. In this cold, survival is reduced to its most basic requirement: fire strong enough to live, and food prepared fast enough to matter. One mistake, one delay, and fingers lose feeling, lungs burn, and time runs out. This is a land where cooking is not comfort. It is a race. The frozen river stretches for kilometers, locked beneath layers of ice thicker than a man is tall. Snow covers the surface like ash, soft but deceptive. Beneath it flows black water, silent and lethal. The air is completely still. No wind, no sound. At this temperature, silence becomes heavy, almost physical, pressing against the ears. Every breath leaves a cloud that lingers longer than it should, hanging in the air like smoke from an extinguished flame. This is deep winter in the far north of Siberia. The sun rises low and weak, barely clearing the horizon before retreating again. Daylight lasts only a few hours. The temperature has not climbed above minus 55 degrees Celsius in weeks. Today it falls further. On the riverbank, a small camp sits exposed to the open cold. There are no trees nearby, only frozen willows half buried in snow, twisted by decades of wind and ice. Firewood must be carried from far away or scavenged from dead roots trapped in the riverbanks. Every movement costs energy. Every task must be deliberate. Here, a man prepares to cook. The meat lies frozen on a slab of ice, its surface white with frost. It was harvested days earlier and has remained preserved by the cold alone. No salt, no smoke, no shelter. In this environment, the cold itself is the storage. The meat is solid, unyielding, as hard as rock. A knife scrapes against it uselessly. Cutting is impossible until heat is introduced. Fire is already burning, though weakly. Even fire struggles at minus 62 degrees Celsius. Wood cracks loudly as moisture inside explodes from the sudden heat. Flames burn low and blue, starred by cold air that refuses to move. Smoke sinks instead of rising, crawling along the ground before freezing into thin, drifting sheets. Building and maintaining this fire took over an hour. Gloves had to be removed repeatedly to strike sparks, tie knots, split frozen wood. Each exposure burned the skin. Fingers went numb within seconds. Pain followed quickly, sharp and electric, before fading into something worse, nothing at all. The fire must be fed constantly. If it dies, restarting it could take longer than the body can afford. Cooking here is not about taste. It is about speed, calories, and survival. Meat must be thawed just enough to cut, then cook fast before heat loss overtakes progress. The ice beneath the fire begins to melt, forming a thin layer of water that instantly refreezes around the stones. Steam rises and freezes in place, coating nearby tools in white frost. The smell of meat, faint but unmistakable, cuts through the cold air. It is the only sign of life for kilometers. In this region, cooking outdoors is unavoidable. Tents trap condensation that freezes instantly. Smoke inside enclosed spaces can suffocate. Fire indoors risks melting permafrost beneath shelters, collapsing floors, or igniting dry insulation. The safest place to cook is often in the open, where mistakes are visible and smoke can drift away, even if the cold is merciless. Time passes slowly here. Movements are minimal, careful. Energy must be conserved. Standing still is dangerous, but unnecessary movement wastes calories that cannot be replaced easily. The body is always balancing on the edge between freezing and exhaustion. As the meat begins to soften, it is sliced into thick chunks. The knife bites reluctantly, metal squealing against frozen fibers. Small ice crystals burst from the surface with every cut. The meat is placed directly onto a flat iron pan, already rimed with frost. The sound is immediate sharp sizzling, then silence as the moisture flashes into vapor. The pan must stay close to the flame. Even a few centimeters of distance reduces heat enough to slow cooking dramatically. Hands hover dangerously close to the fire, skin drying instantly, cracking at the knuckles. The heat feels violent against frozen flesh, painful in a way that suggests injury rather than comfort. Around the camp, the world remains still. No animals move at this temperature. Even birds have retreated. Only the fire shifts and breath moves. The cold amplifies every sound, the crack of wood, the scrape of metal, the faint hiss of fat rendering. In the distance, the forest stands frozen in place. Trees are silent but under strain. At night, they will explode without warning, trunks splitting from the cold with gunshot cracks that echo across the tundra. The land is alive, but only just. Cooking continues. The outer surface of the meat browns quickly, but inside it remains dangerously cold. Undercooked food here can drain precious energy from digestion alone. The body burns calories simply trying to warm what it consumes. Every bite must count. The meat is turned carefully, smoke briefly thickening before freezing into glittering particles that drift away. Fat drips onto the fire, flaring weakly before vanishing. There is no waste. Every drop matters. Nearby, boots are planted firmly in snow, toes slowly losing sensation. Feet must be moved regularly to maintain circulation. Frostbite does not announce itself loudly. It begins quietly, with numbness mistaken for relief. By the time pain returns, damage is already done. This process harvesting, preserving, cooking is repeated throughout the winter. It has been done this way for generations. Long before modern gear, before insulated clothing or metal tools, people here learned to work with the cold instead of fighting it. They learned that heat is temporary, but preparation lasts. A brief pause follows as the meat finishes cooking. It is removed quickly, placed on a wooden board that instantly steals what warmth remains. Eating must happen immediately. The first bite is tough, fibrous, still slightly frozen at the center. Steam escapes from the mouth and freezes along the collar of a fur-lined coat. Chewing is slow. The jaw stiffens in the cold. Teeth ache, but the calories are real. Fat coats the mouth, rich and sustaining. Protein follows, heavy and grounding. This food will keep the body alive through the next hours of labor and cold. It will fuel movement, thought, and heat. Without it, the margin for error disappears. As the meal continues, the fire begins to weaken. Wood runs low. More must be gathered before dark fully claims the land. Darkness here is not just the absence of light. It brings deeper cold, falling temperatures, and increased risk. Tasks unfinished by sunset become exponentially harder. The camp is dismantled quickly. Tools are wrapped to prevent metal from freezing the skin. Remaining embers are smothered with snow. Even fire must be controlled carefully. Unattended, it can melt ice unevenly, creating hidden hazards beneath the surface. The frozen river remains unchanged, stretching endlessly into white distance. It does not care who crosses it or who cooks beside it. It simply exists, older than memory, colder than fear. Life here is not dramatic in the way outsiders imagine. There are no constant battles, no heroic moments played loudly. Survival is quiet, repetitive, and unforgiving. It is built from small successes, fires kept alive, meals completed, fingers warm just enough to continue. As night approaches, the temperature drops further. The sky clears completely, revealing stars sharp enough to feel close. The air becomes brittle. Breath cracks in the lungs. The land settles into deeper stillness. Cooking is finished for today. Tomorrow it will begin again. In places like this, food is more than nourishment. It is proof that life can persist under impossible conditions. Fire, meat, ice, and time combined carefully, respectfully. In the coldest corners of the world, survival is not a moment of triumph. It is a daily ritual, repeated in silence, beneath an indifferent sky, where endurance is measured not in years, but in winters endured.